Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and units of the Warhammer 40k universe, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace. There is only time for war. And today, we shall be taking a brief look at one of the most powerful warlords of all of the forces of the Great Butcher, the Lord of War, the Dark God Khorne. For there are few who can come close to the might of this greater demon. He is not as simple as some might believe, and certainly more astute and cunning than the idiot Skarbrand. Of course, I can only be speaking of the mighty Bloodthirster, Bandha. Bandha. Ah, how I hate thee. Of all the demons of Khorne, he is the one that offends me most. He is the bane of my favorite space marines, the Blood Angels. Now there is no coincidence in the presentation of this little biscuit of lore, for today, the 28th of January 2022, at the Las Vegas Open, they have revealed a new model for him. And what a model he is. But we shall gush later. Let us first find out a little bit more about this most prized of Khorne's mad marshals. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. Well, it's been a while I've been doing this, so I guess I shall try to grow a bit more of a spine, and see if I cannot whip out the details from memory. Stop leaning so much on that old existing wisdom, eh? Things do move along so dashed fast. It's hard for a wee baldy to keep up sometimes, so if I go astray, please do update me in the comments section, you old ghouls, you who know more than I. So, let's do it. Bandha. A greater demon is a hand-picked champion of Khorne who has risen through the ranks, accrued so many skulls and blood as supplication for their patron deity that they have reached the summit, the pinnacle of power. Yet not all greater demons are created equal. There is not only a pecking order, but a power level that waxes and wanes as a being rises and falls in favor. Yet to rise to this exalted rank, to become a true Bloodthirster of Khorne, is to be one of his favorites. It takes a level of rage and blood and spite that is almost unfathomable. And Bandha is one of the greatest of all the Bloodthirsters. Only Skarbrand and Angarath the Unbound are even more potent. Yet Angarath was forced from the material plane at the Siege of Vrax in Millennium 41, so they may not even be able to be summoned at this point. Who knows? But Skarbrand turned on his master. So besotted with his own engorged power, he forgot its source. Skarbrand we will get to another day in more detail, but he attempted to take on his master while his back was turned. Khorne himself. He was smashed down, of course, his mind addled, and he was banished from the court of the Blood God. But in Bandha, we see a demon that has risen from the very lowliest ranks, and has learnt all the way. He has grown in rage and hate, as all demons of Khorne must do to gain more power, but he has not left behind the cunning and pragmatism that permitted him to rise in the first place. He takes a larger view of the war, a broader perspective. And he is not just a thing of slaughter and rage, desecration and destruction. He is still wily. He employs tactics and has a good head for strategy, which makes him far, far more dangerous than the simpler, more blunt and direct demons of Khorne. And this makes him a threat to all. For it was Bandha who was left in wait for the angel, the Primarch Sanguinius, gene father of the Blood Angels. When Horus fell to chaos, he was the War Master. He was the big kahuna. He could give orders and reasonably expect them to be obeyed. Thus, nobody knowing of his turning his coat to tyranny and the dark gods, he spread the most loyal of all Marines to the furthest reaches of space before ever he raised his banners on Estevan in rebellion against the throne. So, Sanguinius and the 9th Legion, the Blood Angels, were sent into the Cygnus cluster by Horus, sent into a trap. For when they arrived on the central world, Cygnus Prime, there were the forces of Khorne. Now one must remember that in this period the dark gods and chaos were not known. So the Blood Angels were taken utterly by surprise. Yet they fought all the harder because of it. One of the most noble, staunch and defiant of all the legions, the Blood Angels were like all other Marines, tiny copies of the splendor shown in their Primarch. And in Sanguinius, the power, the purity was known. Yet the trap was not just force, not really an attempt by Khorne to destroy the Legion, as Horus had suspected. Or was it hoped? Much to the potential anger of Horus, the real plan was to attempt to turn Sanguinius and his sons to the worship of the Blood God. Horus always feared his brother Sanguinius, always knew he was a being much lusted after by the powers of chaos, and thus he was a potential competitor or rival for the power and position of War Master, the Lord of Chaos Undivided. So it was that the great Bloodthirster confronted the Primarch and made his play. To quote,
"Recognize me then, Sanguinius of Baal. I am Bandha, Bloodthirster and General of Khorne. Blessed is his name. And we are brothers."
Bandha, upon first meeting Sanguinius on Cygnus Prime. End quote. The two spoke, and Bandha tried to bring the angel to the worship of Khorne, tried to show him how he was really, truly just a butcher himself. Yet nothing tempted the son of the Emperor, possibly the one most like he. For his beauty was only matched by his lethality, which again was only beaten by his honor, his loyalty, and his love of the dream the Emperor dreamed, a free and united humanity, the Imperium. So the two fought a titanic struggle. At first, the angel had the better of the encounter, attacking the demon with skill, speed, and power that it could not match. Even he, a Bloodthirster of Khorne, one of the most powerful demons to ever exist. Still, the angel tore into him, smashed his teeth with a backhand sword swung on its flat, sliced his face as none had ever managed before. None. Yet the demon was cunning, as I say. He revealed to Sanguinius that his most trusted and respected big brother, Horus Lupercal, had turned to evil, had betrayed the Emperor, and in that moment the demon struck. Sanguinius was shocked to the core, and in that instant the whip of the monster took him from his feet and entrapped him. The Blood Angels attacked the beast with bolter volleys and assaults, and when the demon matched their attack and slaughtered hundreds of the Marines, the angel was struck down also. For Sanguinius was a powerful psyker amongst the Primarchs, and he felt the deaths of his sons, as none of his brothers did with theirs, so many of them expiring so tragically and painfully and swiftly, gave him such a psychic whiplash that he passed out. But later, he arose again, and when he did, he then attacked Bandha with such force and vigour, such rage of his own, that the being was bested. He slew Bandha. Yet with his passing, the being placed a curse on the Blood Angels, that which would later grow with them, to be an amplifier to the psychic damage done by the eventual death of the great angel. Bandha put the seeds of the Black Rage into them, a curse both cunning and potentially the downfall of the Legion entire. Only time will tell. But at the present, even with the onset of the Primaris Marines, it seems the struggle against the curse is something that they will eventually lose if their father does not return to them somehow. It was always there, of course, the red thirst, the need for battle, near as high as that of the Space Wolves. The Blood Angels were not always noble. It was the arrival of their Primarch that gave them a better example. Before his advent, they were known as butchers. So he is, as he always was, not only their father, but also their saviour. For only through him can they resist the struggles, the pulls of both the curse the Emperor wrote into their very fibre, the red thirst, and also the subsequent Black Rage. This was not the only time they would meet. As I said, Commander takes a larger view of the battle. He is patient. He has time. For he has made the Blood Angels his priority, and he is even willing to defend them from external threats, as we shall soon see. Sanguinius was at the Eternity Gate on the Imperial Palace on Holy Terra when they would next meet. The traitor legions under the War Master had pushed all the way to Terra, had ground down all the defences, and were about to pour into the inner sanctum, and then to the very throne of the Emperor himself. Yet they were stayed by one man. One. Sanguinius. There he stood, holding back all the legions of hell, marching at the side of the most dangerous survivors of the siege, the traitor Astartes. He held them back for so long, so well, that inevitably they sent forward one they believed could remove him. The fools. For they sent Bandha, the same demon that he had defeated before. Although the spectacle was astonishing, as I recounted in the video for Dawn, Praetor of Terror, it was to be the same result. Bandha was eventually thrown down and broken over the knee of the mighty son of the Emperor. He had been defeated again. But, being so cunning, did he know that he was to be a sacrifice himself? Did Bandha know that all he was doing was exhausting the angel before the Primarch went to face his brother Horus? Was that all he did, some might say? But it rings true with his long-haul view of events. For tire and wound the angel Bandha did. And we will now never ever know if a fighting fit and unwounded Sanguinius might actually have bested Lupercal. For he did not. Horus slew him. In all of the time since, Bandha has been summoned or wheedled his way into the materium, the real world, regularly. In his most dramatic intervention thus far, he slaughtered in the defense of the Blood Angels even. During the siege of Baal, when a massive tendril of high-fleet Leviathan ploughed towards the fortress monastery of the chapter, and all of the successors that would help then arrived to defend not only the honour of the first founding chapter, but also the very body of Sanguinius. Perhaps what the great devourer wanted all along. Things looked dire, and the angels were near spent. But at the last, a warp storm arrived and cut them off from the rest of the system. When the storm passed, the Indomitus Crusade, under the Primarch of the Ultramarines, Reboot Guilliman, came to the rescue on Baal itself, and smashing the remaining Tyranids on Baal. Yet when they investigated the moons of Baal, where many Marines had been stationed, they found none alive. But they also found no Tyranids alive. It seemed the commander would not allow any to take his Blood Angels from him, as the entire planet had been ravaged. The only things remaining were mountains of dead bugs placed in the shape of an icon. The icon of Bandha. He literally intervened to protect the Blood Angels. Now Bandha was also instrumental in the end times of the old world, the world that was. But I have to concede, I still have not had the fortitude of perspective to read that fully, so do forgive my brevity on this issue. Bandha is a nightmare, as we have seen, as he is not just a being of insensate rage, as all bloodthirsters are. He is able to control his rage, direct his anger, just enough to permit him to employ his mind, to be unpredictable, and thus far more dangerous. He is far more of a threat than, say, a thug like Scarbrand. For where Brand will rock into a city and walk out with every single skull therein contained, no. Bandha will take a few moments, will step back from the scenario. He will plot out how to destroy the entire continent, world, system, and then sector. He is dangerous because he thinks. And Bandha thinks big. I will have to work hard for the pennies, it seems, because I honestly cannot wait to present him on the tabletop. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to the greater demon, the Bloodthirster Bandha, General of Khorne. If so, then please consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. If you see the worth in what we are doing, then do also consider joining our Patreon, or giving the video a share if that is beyond your present scope. It will be a great boon. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.